Hello, it's Ashley Brewer, and I'm back with another house build. This one is going to be the Georgian houses. These houses were common in the 1700 to 1780. They're very symmetrical, very much like the previous videos, the salt box houses. They have many windows, again, like the salt box. This one, the roof is very different, and you have a lot of different decorations, whether it being the crown. Some of these houses come in brick, some of them in panel. I end up opting with panel this time around. Might do another build later on with brick. But without further ado, we're going to get into the build. So I start off the build with a large square, very similar to the salt box style house, because most of these houses are usually a big block, and then some of them would have symmetrical extensions on the sides that are a little bit smaller, some of them wrapped around, depending on the house. Now, Georgian houses are named after British monarchs like George the First, Second, and Third, and Fourth, who reigned continuous succession from August 1714 to June 1830. So that's what they're named after. But actually, what's interesting enough is American colonial Georgian houses looked more like other European countries that had a similar Georgian style compared to the British Georgian. British was more brick and kind of like, in my opinion, looked more like federal, which we will probably be doing more builds on federal houses later on. So here I am getting the roof. The pitch and matching up the alignment of the roof with the lower tiles with this build was so much easier than matching it in a salt box style house. If you've watched that video, you see me frustrating with that for a while. I ended up making the house a little bit smaller because I felt like it was just too much, and I wanted to have, I think, two side windows and then the door with a window above it, and I felt like the way it was already too wide, so I ended up making it smaller here. I messed with trying to put that crown that on the roofing, but because it went around to the side, I just didn't think it looked right. That's kind of frustrating. I wish the Sims 4 you could only put it in certain wall panels and not have it wrapped around the entire building. So I ended up opting out of it. Another big thing with these Georgian houses, you see that big pillars, the red front door. A lot of the Georgian houses had either a black door or a red door. I went with the red door because most of the pictures I saw, especially with American colonial houses, had that red door. You have these paneled windows, which is a little bit different than what we had with the salt box style houses. They were just kind of square windows, and these actually have those shutters. A lot of the Georgian houses had that, the panels. Some of them didn't. More the bricks didn't. They had some sort of molding in the brick instead. I decided because we're doing paneling, it would better go with the shutters. As you saw, the picture that I posted at the beginning that you saw, it's pretty much what I was looking off as kind of a guide. You can kind of see in the back corner there's a little roofing that's sticking out, so I assumed that that was a back patio. So I ended up putting one in at the end. I know I tried to do it at first and decided not to, and now I went back and decided to do it. The way I ended up deciding to do this roof was flat against the wall and then kind of like that and then extend it. So I leave that there for a while and then end up editing it and decorating it more because, again, the pillars that these houses use are much more decorative. Some of the more luxury Georgian houses have a lot more of a fancy feel to it. They have the fencing on the roof that you will see. A lot of the Georgian houses also had two chimneys, so you'll see me put that in. For the back side, I decided to put smaller windows because I assumed that I'm going to put the kitchen in there, and because the kitchen's going to be in there, it will most likely be easier to have smaller windows so that the cabinets can fit. And here's me trying to put that roof. A lot of the Georgian houses had like this roof as a decoration. Unfortunately, like the picture that you saw at the beginning of the video, I could not get the roof to go over the along the roof line. And I messed with this for a little while, and I just couldn't get in a way I liked, and kind of just left it where it was. Um, let's see. I had a lot of information about these houses because they had, I guess, the most history with them than most of the things that I saw. So here I am. I finally got it into a way that I liked it and kind of stuck with that. Here I am putting the windows that you saw on the original picture kind of over. There were three of them, I believe, and now I kind of split them up in even spaces. I was going to try and put something more square, but this was the one that matched with the paneling that I was going to choose the best, which I have not put the paneling on yet. You'll see me do that later. Here I am putting those big brick chimneys. Again, these houses are very symmetrical. Most houses, I feel like, post 1900s, and even looking into some of the future builds, houses, they stop going so symmetrical because asymmetrical is the nicest way to look. I can see this fitting better in like a crowded city, especially in like, I don't know, Philadelphia or some of this like more crowded older cities. But when you're building houses nowadays, they don't really have that as much. So here I'm putting some steps up to it because I noticed there were some small steps. A lot of these Georgian houses had like pillars as an entryway. Again, now I'm putting in more of the picket fence. I don't like how small the fences are in The Sims in comparison to the house. Like you can see that fence just kind of is towered by the house and isn't tall enough. And I wanted to go with that white picket fence feel because it matched the picture as best as possible. I ended up going with one of the metal fences from, I think, the vampire pack. I can't remember what it's called, but here I am again putting this in. I felt like this was a little bit more fitting. I ended up putting brick walkway. Actually, that brick walkway almost perfectly matches the brick walkway that was out in front of the original house that I am basing this off of. And then, of course, terrain painting and decorating. I did put a lot more into the plants around the front and side of the house because the picture that you saw had a lot of that. And then, of course, putting testing cheats because I don't like that you can't just put plants on top of each other. Like, I understand while certain objects you don't want to use too much liberty with the bb.move objects, but with plants where the Sims never interact with them, I don't think it's a big deal, especially with decorations. So I always do it because it makes the plants more realistic instead of being like on a grid. And then, of course, giving it some more greenery and putting it as close to the wall without having it clip through. Putting some terrain paint. And a tree to kind of fill that yard up because I don't have a fence going into that backyard very much. I guess you could go out the back door, which is not really much yet. Go out the back door and go to the rest of the yard area, but I didn't really fill it up with too much because I didn't really need to. Maybe with the more modern houses we'll get some like kid stuff and like yard work, but for now I'm trying to keep it with that style that the house is in. It's so hard though with the furniture because like you would want to keep like with furniture of that time period, but one, I don't really have a good idea of what that would look like, and two, The Sims only has so much that you can use with it. So I kind of like look like, okay, somebody moved into this old piece of history and they remodeled it on the inside, or they kind of did their own thing. I think with this, I kind of limited the filters to like Queen Anne, farmhouse, French country, and stuff like that, which are some of the more older looking pieces. But again, you can only use so much with The Sims 4 or any Sims game at that. I did put a lot more work into this yard work than some of the other houses because the yard being so large, I felt like it looked empty and needed more work. I could go on with details. I wish there were more plant options, tree options. Like, there's just never enough. And there's a lot. It's just never enough. Like, more bushes. Give me anything. Like, I really need to look into creative content because I feel like that would make my builds to the next level. So again, with a lot of the entryways, they had like these um very decorative crowning, and I wanted to put that, and messing around with this I put different fences on it to try and like give it that decoration and molding that some of the other stuff, and I ended up not going with this one, but the crowning that you couldn't put, I didn't want to put on the under the roof line, end up being perfect for that little section there. So you'll see me get into that, and then of course I'm wanting to get the most decorative pillar I can find without it being too gaudy. Because a lot of these houses had these really nice decorative pillar entryways. So yeah, I end up leaving it with that for now and then going and changing it. I do put some, what are those called? Banners? Yeah. But the it's so tricky putting this in. I wish you could use those like a fence, like just draw them on like the fence, but you can't. You have to have it like replacing a wall or over a fence. Like, there's a lot of UI things that The Sims 4 can do a little bit better, but don't. So that's what we get. And then of course I went back and I was like, wait, these pillars need to be more decorative to fit the rest of the house. So I'm putting some decorative pillars, putting in these um, overhangs. I ended up changing the roof coloring to be more dark. And then that's like, oh, this would be perfect for that. So I ended up finding, I think I ended up going with that one because it fit the entryway and looked very much like the picture. So I think the exterior of the house is pretty much done, and now I go into laying it out. And boy, was this a pain. The first thing I was trying to do, which I'm doing right now, was Google floor plans for these houses because I had an idea what they looked like. I assumed their room layout was very symmetrical, but I didn't know, like, okay, staircase going up to the second floor, which I didn't even use the attic floor, which I could probably put like a ladder up to it and it can be an actual attic space, or I could put more rooms up there, but I didn't really, it would be a lot. So the first floor plan I saw had like stairs going up from two different areas, and I didn't like how it split up the space, and I was like, you know what, no. So I ended up choosing a different floor plan that these double extra wide stairs, and it wrapped around, and there was kind of like a down look into the from like a loft. But The Sims 4 can be very tricky with that because the way you delete floors can delete the floor for the entire area instead of just like deleting one tile. Um, I understand why The Sims might have wanted to do that, but it was the most frustrating thing to deal with. So I ended up putting a fence in and kind of lining what part of the area that I wanted to delete it, and then put that in. I don't know how it actually started working in the end because I've done this way before and it not work. Like, it, if you saw the oh, see, I deleted the whole floor there because it wasn't like its own room. Um if you saw how when I first put it in, like when I deleted the fence it popped back up, and then I tried to delete it and it didn't work. But I tried to do it before and it didn't work, and now it did. So I was like, all right, I'm not messing with it too much. I'm not complaining. I got it. Okay. Now I had to figure out where I wanted to put the bedrooms. And this was a little frustrating because I ended up changing it a bunch of different times because I felt like the rooms were odd shaped, and also laying out the floor for the downstairs was frustrating because I didn't want like a nook next to the stairs for no reason. I did want the rooms kind of roomed off because the floor plan that I found on Google did look a lot like all the rooms are kind of walled off and you had archways or doors leading into the next room. The open floor plan wasn't very common. So here I have two small bedrooms with a Jack and Jill bathroom. I love Jack and Jill bathrooms. I feel like it's very fitting for kids to like share a bathroom and then be between the bathrooms. I felt like that was really cute. So I do that with a lot of the builds that you see, even if that's not like the thing for the build. There's only so much you can find on Google, and you can only replicate so much with The Sims because of how everything snaps the grid. You don't really have as many curved ability, like no curved walls is a big thing, and so it can be frustrating. So now I'm mapping out the downstairs, and I go back and forth on this a bunch because you can't really change where the windows are. And some of the windows were right where I wanted to have a wall. And if I changed the windows around, it just would mess up everything. So I kind of had to work with what I had. It wasn't like the salt box. Well, the front of the salt box style house, I couldn't really change where the windows were, but the sides I kind of gave myself some area to play with. And this was frustrating. Figuring out how I wanted to do this perfectly was probably the most time consuming thing of this build at all. Um, I think most of this video is me messing with where the walls are going to be laid out. How do I want to do this? What am I gonna separate where? And then I end up furnishing the living room, a sitting room, the kitchen, and the kitchen table before I put a pause and was like, all right, I'm done recording for now. This will go into the video, and then I'll do a part 2 tomorrow. So I hopefully will be recording part 2 later today, and then uploading it tomorrow after I edit it a little bit. I need to get better on my edit skills, so any suggestions on, I don't know, how to better make these videos more enjoyable to watch, that would be very much appreciated. Again, I messed with where I wanted these walls so much, but I'm getting closer to where I put the build. And then I realized I have chimneys and I don't have a fireplace. So I ended up putting fireplaces in later on, but it took me some time. One of the things that I do like that The Sims 4 did input is the like raising and lowering floors in rooms so that you can kind of have like a like in the 70s when you had those like living rooms that were like down a step and then like all around it was the same level and then you had to go down into the living room. I like that for some reason. I think it's a really cool idea, and so I would like get excited if I have a build that I can actually like, you know what, use that for, because my house growing up had the entryway was on these marble tiles and they were raised up by like, I guess I would say a little less than half a foot from the carpeted areas. And I thought that was the coolest thing as a kid. It looks so nice, and it gives some like depth to the house. So now I'm painting the house, and the way I saw it is like outside's very light. I feel like people want things to be bright and sunny. So I painted the house in yellows and blues and light pinks. Mostly yellow though. And then of course the two large bedrooms, so I think like master bedroom and a guest bedroom, are white, and then for the two bedrooms I did a blue room and a pink room, girls room, boys room kind of thing. This is where I decided, okay, I'm gonna elevate some of these rooms and then have a step up. I think I ended up deciding that the dining room, I didn't really like it elevated and go back on that. And then I think I only really had half the living room elevated. I end up putting white floor panels. I might go up when I do the second floor and put actual carpet in. I should look into that. Is like, when did carpet become more common than having wood flooring? Which I hate carpet. Like, it's gross. I have cats. I have two black cats and a white cat. So no matter what color carpet I have, I'm gonna have cat fur showing on it, especially on my downstairs, where my computers are. There's black fur everywhere because my cats are fluffy. So you can't win with that. But hardwood, on the other hand, like you sweep it. And cat fur isn't as noticeable. It doesn't stick to it. So anytime I would rather use wood, I can't will. So here I'm kind of messing with the different decorations. I'm like, oh, I didn't do this yet. I noticed on the side of the house in the picture that I was basing everything off of, it had like the water, the gutter drains, I guess. I don't know what you'd call those. I bet you when people finally actually watch these videos, they're gonna have comments like, they're pronounced this, it's said like this, and I'm be like, y'all, I suck at talking. I love to talk, but I suck at it. I mispronounce so much. Correct me because I don't mind. Make fun of me. It's fine. It's normal. This is the same problem I had with the other sim game is putting like plants in is like there's nothing that fits the house perfectly. So for the windows, I did want to put very big decorative um, curtains because I feel like with the time period that would make sense. Um, so I did. And then moving these, I realized that none of my, like a lot of my windows didn't actually like line up with each other. And then with the fact that some of them were raised on a platform and some of them weren't, I had to fix that and realize like most of my windows were all like not aligned with each other, and that was really frustrating. I ended up putting yellow in here and light blue in the other room because I felt like the contrast was much nicer. Oh yeah, I was very frustrated with that. So I ended up raising it, putting it where I wanted it, and then lowering the floor again. So I got all the curtains in, and now I was making sure different things were aligned where I wanted. Put a carpet in that sitting room, and then this is where I put the fireplaces. Feel like if I could go back and fix the build, or if I ever go back and fix the build, I would put the fireplace in a different place, or at least maybe change the layout of that downstairs floor. Like, it's not the best. So this area I decided, like, okay, it's elevated kind of like a stage. We're going to put the piano in that corner. But, like, then I was like, all right, where am I going to put seating for this room? I think it was one of the most frustrating things to deal with. And maybe putting the piano in the center because I didn't want to block anything off. Like I didn't want to block off the fireplace, but I didn't want to block off the sitting room. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna put a large rug to like fill in the space and move the fireplace over, put some like small seats next to the fireplace, and I call it a day. I think if I go back fix it, I wouldn't have the fireplace there. I would put the piano in the center of the room, kind of like a stage. I don't know. Maybe make that the sitting room and make the lower area the rate. Like, there's a lot I could have done differently with this, and I kind of just got frustrated and did what I did. So I put those lights in, but are those lights too low hanging for the piano? I'll probably check that. I have not recorded finishing the rest of this build, so I might go back and fix some of the things that I put in here as I talk. Oh, if I go and fix it, if I ever want to fix it, I might fix some things in the next video. So you'll see. Stay tuned. And then of course putting a nice sitting area where I guess it would be like a little tea room or something like that. I don't know. I wanted it like light colored, but like I feel like I put too much blue in there. Like that's one thing I'm probably need to work on with The Sims is like I like to use black and white or like all same color. But I don't put enough contrast and like as you can see everything is so pastel and bright. But like I don't think anything dark would fit in there. So like I try and watch like other YouTubers and kind of get inspiration based on what they do. Um there's sometimes though when I'm watching some of the YouTubers that like they do play like the home decorator expansion and stuff like that. I get so frustrated because they're like, "Oh, that's so ugly," and I'm like, "Wow, I really thought that was pretty." Uh, so I was like, I guess I have bad taste, or maybe they're wrong. But I just assume I have bad taste because I'm really like compared to some of these builds, like some of the stuff that they do is phenomenal. So I'm making the kitchen. Now this kitchen was a little weird to do. I didn't know what cabinets I wanted to use. I didn't know what color, and I ended up going with white, which makes the house even more bright than it already is. I feel like they don't have enough cabinet options. Like compared to like some of the other like items, cabinets and like kitchen stuff in general is just there's just it's lacking. So I did not mind moving around the windows in the back because there wasn't real like there's two windows above them, but I think I didn't move anything to do with those, but the other ones that didn't have a window above them, I didn't mind moving them because again, they didn't have to be aligned to something. I might go back and double check to make sure it still looks symmetrical. So this is I'm putting in like kind of an island. Um, Sink, and then I believe lighting for this room. Kind of messing around with different choice options. I like these from, I believe, the home decorator expansion because they kind of I don't know, they added a lot of items from the home decorator that just made The Sims 4 have a lot more, like the sectional couches and the sectional like TV stands and stuff like that, and like doing wardrobes or closets and stuff offered a lot more options thanks to that expansion. And I believe that's where I take a pause. I'll probably do the rest of the dining room in the next build and or the next video. And after that, we'll be working on Federal. I think is the next house style, which is very similar to the Georgian. More brick though. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and give some comments.